All right, welcome back, YouTube, to another video of my history and thoughts with. And as you could tell, we got the Sega Saturn going today. I'll actually get out of the way here. You can see my nice shiny black friend there. And I'm actually going to go right through that. I actually previously filmed this video, and I had the intro going for that all the way through the whole video, and Clamp just copyright struck the heck out of it. So we're just going to get the game going here. And, you know, hopefully they don't do the same thing with this right here. It is a cut, well, it'll be a cutscene in a second. But I get the feeling it was the song they were unhappy with. I don't know. Hopefully it's not. Or hopefully that was it and this doesn't get hit. But we'll see. Maybe I'll have to do this a third time. And so as usual, I have this playing because this was my first game for the system. And so I'm not sure what it's doing now. My cable on the back of this system has been kind of finicky. There it goes. I guess it's just loading. But anyway, so yeah, there's the game. But yeah, the Sega Saturn here. So this system, gosh, I remember when it came out, I was pretty interested in it actually. You know, at the time, my friends, I had been to their houses. A lot of them had Sega Genesis. The Sega Genesis was just so popular. And so when this came out, I was really interested in checking it out. But at the time, you know, just my situation with my family, like I was rocking the Super Nintendo well into the 90s. And I had a friend get a PlayStation and another one a 64. And we ended up with a PlayStation and a 64. But I always remember being really curious about this system when I would see it at the store. I have a good memory of Knights, actually, and the 3D controller, and trying that in the store, and it really made my imagination run wild. And I'd see it in magazines a lot. But later throughout the 90s, I saw the magazines kind of turn it apart. I always remember this image of the Saturn logo kind of sinking into the ocean in a magazine that I have. I still actually have the magazine somewhere around here. But in essence, after that, the Saturn kind of just disappeared. I didn't really see too much of it, hear much more about it up until, YouTube. And seeing various content creators talk about it in games. And, when I started collecting games, I think I've told the story about Dragon Warrior 4 and its value, and I was trying to understand it. As I went online, I used to use this site, I think it was called Racket Boy, but I used to look at his rarest games, and I don't know, the Saturn box art was always so interesting to me, and I just remember watching kind of looking at what the games that were valuable were and trying to look out for those. By the way, quick job update. Still unemployed, still looking. Got some interviews this week. Hoping that we finally get there. My videos are so infrequent because I normally like to film when I'm here by myself at the house without my son running around or my wife making noise. And so it's rare where I'm not working on, like, trying to get a job and they're not here. So that's the situation. And this is actually one of the bigger videos that I am doing. And I'll get into why that is, actually. So anyway, back to kind of me looking at that Racket Boy site and just learning about the games, and they just look so fascinating to me. I remember I was buying games before I owned the system. So like I said, my first game for the system is the one you see here. I got a complete copy of Magic Knight Ray Earth, and I know you guys know I'm a huge working designs guy. What makes it funny, this was my first game for the system, is that this was the last game that ever came out for the system. I managed to find this at my local game shop, Game Over Video Games, for $90 back in the day. Now, anyone who knows how much this goes for now, that is a complete steal. Just an absolute steal. And so I'm really blessed and really happy that this was my first Saturn title. Just unbelievable find. I jumped on it. Like I said, I didn't get a Saturn until years later when I finally got to try it out. But yes, my very first game, as you can see up there. Now, as time went on, this system became really unique for me in that I feel like this system is kind of like the ugly duckling. You know, when it first came out, it wasn't that attractive. But as time has gone on, this is like one of my all-time favorite systems to play and collect for. I put this, probably the Sega CD, the TurboGrafx, and the Neo Geo as like my favorites to collect for. The problem is they're all pretty expensive. But I just love the way the box art looks, the cases, even though they're frail, I think they look cool on a shelf. And this to me is like the pinnacle of gaming in terms of what you got out of 2D. Some of the unique 3D stuff, yeah, it wasn't as good as the 6th gen, but I just love how experimental and just how different this generation is. I truly love this system. And another thing I really like is, you know, if you're in gaming circles or gaming groups, you know, different people collect different systems and games. And, you know, I have friends that have big 360 and Switch and all these different systems. I would say I'm the Saturn guy. I have the large Saturn collection. And I brought a lot of it out today. Accessories, games, and there's still a lot back there I didn't pull out. It just, I knew this video was going to take a while, so I have a lot to share, but I didn't want to go crazy overboard. So with that, I guess we can start talking about the system and the games and accessories. And so, yeah, let's start with the system here. As you can see, I got the Model 1 system. It's got the little oval buttons there. And then on top of it, in the back, is a cartridge. Now, this is definitely necessary as a Saturn collector to get one of these sort of action replay carts. I have what's called a pseudo Saturn cart, and it allows me to play imports, like bootleg games. It's got a 4 megabyte RAM cartridge pre-installed, as well as a 1 megabyte. It lets you really do everything, and it's got a save card, memory card built in too. I got it a number of years ago. I used to have another one that was an action replay. It didn't have as much functionality as this one, and it just died on me one day. So it kind of worked out. This was a great upgrade for me. So, but yeah, this is a great system. The only thing I'll say is the back. So I'm displaying this through HD Retrovision component cables with their Saturn adapter. My connector in the back is kind of wonky. There's actually some work I need to get done on my Saturn. I want to get that back connector, you know, open up the system and get that worked on. Probably need to get a little bit of a laser calibration, or maybe even a new laser. Sometimes the system is a little weird with how it reads stuff. And then I definitely want to get the FRAM mod. I actually bought the chip, and then I got laid off right after. I had intended to mail my Saturn off to get some modding done to it. Those 3 mods, the FRAM mod, just make sure my back AV port is working properly, and then my laser. I really don't want to do any of the stuff with the disc emulator with the SD card. I like to just play my discs right off the system. I'm a purist like that. But hey, by all means, however you want to do it your way. So anyway, that is the system. Here's my controller, my main controller I use. This is actually not an official first-party Saturn controller, but I believe Sega did license this, and I think Retrobit made this. It's like the Japanese-style clear controller, and this is for my everyday use. It's modeled off the Model 2, and it works well, you know. Nice controller. It doesn't have the clickies like the Sega ones do, but you know, it gets the job done. You can see I'm moving around. It's just fine the way it is. Now, other accessories I have. Let's go ahead and show you the controller that actually came with the system. So this system actually came with this Model 1 Saturn controller. And you can hear the clicks. I don't know if you can or not, but this controller gets a lot of hate. And it's because of the Model 2. The Model 2 is just such a good controller. But honestly, if you hadn't touched the Model 1 and you just played with this, it's not bad. It's you know, it gets the job done. You got your 6 buttons, you got your shoulder pads. The D-pad's a little wonky, but it honestly works. I actually have 2 of these controllers, and I also have 2 of these. But yeah, it's fine. It does what you need it to do. And then I also, of course, have the first party Saturn Model 2 controller right here. And I have 2 of these as well, for a total of 6 controllers. I think maybe you guys know where this is going, but there's a good reason to have multiple Saturn controllers. I'll get into that as we kind of move along here. And I'll just get into the next controller I have, which I also have 2 of. And that is the Saturn 3D controller. I really love this controller. You got some nice analog triggers here. You got the first, I believe the first analog pad or stick. Although this is kind of a, I don't even know how to explain it. It's like a, reminds me of like a trackball kind of, but with your thumb. I actually prefer this to the Dreamcast controller. And this is where the inspiration for the Dreamcast controller comes from. I mean, if you look at this and you look at a Dreamcast controller, I mean, here, I'll just pull one out right now. You can really see sort of the inspiration there on where this, and like the top has the slot that would come out similar. But I love this controller. And you know, the games that utilize it for the Saturn, they utilize it very well. And I'll just get into 2 that I think really highlight that mostly. And those are going to be Christmas Nights and Nights into Dreams. You know, these were the games that were really kind of saying, hey, use this controller, it's going to be much better. And it is. When you play these games with the 3D controller, it feels really smooth, feels nice. You really feel like you're flying around in these beautiful worlds. I actually have the English version of Christmas Nights, but I bought a Japanese version because I like the Japanese case better. This originally came in like a little cardboard sleeve, and I just wasn't a fan of that on the shelf. So these are great games. I highly recommend both of them, especially if you have that 3D controller. This one, if you're playing at different times of the year, the theme will change. I'm particularly thinking of Christmas, and you can actually see in that little square there, I don't know if you can see it, but it's kind of Christmas time. And it just makes it a really unique and cool experience. And there's neat unlockables on these too. Like I believe you can play as Sonic on one of them. Pretty sure. So, but Sonic Team made these. This was kind of the closest thing to a good Sonic game we got. We got some Sonic games on the system, which I'll get into. But great games. All right. What else? And you know what? Why not? Since I just mentioned Sonic, why don't we just approach that right now and kind of get into Sonic on this system. So the Saturn takes a lot of flack because of what people feel is a lack of Sonic on there, and it's true. It didn't get like this fantastic Sonic game, but you know what it did get were some games that I think playing now, I think they hold up just fine. I'll start with the first one that came out, Sonic 3D Blast. You know, this is a isometric Sonic game. And yes, it did come out on the Genesis, but honestly, this version's much better. It's got weather effects, the music's better. I like the bonus stages more. And this is a fun game. I actually put this on for my son, and he really, really enjoyed it. He played pretty far into it. You know, if you're looking for a slower Sonic experience, and you can move fast through this, this is still a solid choice today. Yeah, it's not going to be like the classics, but it's truly, I don't think, as bad as people make it out to be. I just think people were expecting more on the Saturn at the time, and this was kind of a letdown, but I still think this is a cool game. All right. Next Sonic that we got later, Sonic Jam for the system. Now, this is an awesome package. You get Sonic, Sonic 2, Sonic 3, and Sonic and Knuckles all in this collection. And you can actually use the lock-on cart features on all of them. Not only that, but this is not emulation. This is a true direct port. These games were built for the Saturn from the ground up, and they have modes that let you take advantage of that. They have like original Genesis mode, and then also like the Saturn mode, which have some benefits and probably some of the best ways to play the game. You also get to use the spin dash in Sonic 1 when you use the lock-on cart, I believe. And then the cool thing is it's truly the first time Sonic was in 3D. There's a little 3D hub world that you can run around in and like collect rings and do little mini games and defeat little enemies. It's really neat to see what he looked like and what could have been done more on the Saturn if there was more time and interest. But this is a really cool collection. Not cheap though. You can get this cheap if you get the Japanese version, but this US version is not cheap at all. It is pricey. And as I've said in the past before, I don't care. I want the US ones. There are some particular instances, like a good one is a stall. I have that, and I bought it, the Japanese one, just for the Sega intro that ours is on Sega Lord X's videos that he has in his introduction. I love his intro. I love his channel, and I'll get into him later. He's a huge inspiration for me for Saturn collecting purposes. But yes, Sonic Jam, great collection. All right. Finally, we get to Sonic R. And again, another game that is very polarizing. Another 3D pad game. And yes, I like this much better with the 3D pad. Now, this game came out pretty late in the life of the system, but when you see what they're doing on this game, Traveler's Tales with the transparencies and the 3D, they did a bang-up job on this game. And oh my gosh, the music. You either love it a lot or you're not a fan. I am definitely a big fan of the music of this title. It's funny, I actually got this game in an eBay auction. Or I don't even remember how I got it, but it was sealed. The plastic was starting to come off, but I got a really good deal because it wasn't fully sealed. I just opened it because I wanted a nice complete copy to play with a clean disc. But if you get good at this game, if you give this game the time of day and you don't just throw it away because the controls are weird. The controls is what throw a lot of people off on this game. But if you give it the time, you can get good at this, and it can be a great game. 2 players well. But yeah, that's Sonic on the Saturn. So some niche titles, but if you give them the time of day, they can be fun and be enjoyable. All right. Let's go ahead and get into some more accessories here. Let's see. Let's go ahead and talk about this big guy. We got the Virtua Stick. This was a Japanese exclusive arcade stick, and I had wanted an arcade stick for my Saturn because there's just so many great arcade-style games for the system. Shooters, fighting games, all kinds of awesome stuff. And so when I was looking at the Saturn sticks, this was the one. I was like, I want that one. Now, from all the reviews and everything I'd seen, this seems to be the one that everybody recommended and liked. And it's a great stick. Mine's in pretty decent shape. It's not perfect, but it's good enough. And so I have this, which makes, I believe, 9 controllers. And I actually just got the TR Fight Stick, the Octopus Fight Stick that also works with the Saturn, which marks 10 controllers. So I'll get into why I have all that, but I did want 2 arcade sticks for shooters and fighting games and all that. And again, love this arcade stick. Kind of pricey, but really nice. I let my son play on it, but I just remind him, hey, it's 30 years old or between 25 and 30, so be easy on it. But it's a very attractive looking stick and works well with a plethora of games. And I'll show you some of those games now that I think this thing is great with. Let's see here. So we'll just get right into some shooters here. Galactic Attack. I believe in Japan this game was called Raystorm or Rayforce. But this is an awesome, vertically scrolling 2D shoot 'em up. And I believe this game supports Tate mode, if I'm not mistaken. Which, by the way, I actually have a flat screen TV over here. I think I mentioned this in my Neo Geo video. It's on a swivel mount. So when I want to play Tate Saturn games, my Saturn's hooked up on a G-Comp switch. One cable goes to the flat screen and the other goes to the tube. I'll switch over here and I'll play them in Tate mode on a very large screen, which is pretty neat. But yes, great shoot 'em up to go with that arcade stick. Another shoot 'em up that's really great with it, Darius Gaiden. This is such a unique and interesting game with like the fish and sort of I don't know, it's like bionicle fish spaceships. But the effects in this game are so cool. It's so fun to play this 2-player. It's very challenging. There's a lot of different paths you can go down. But this is a wonderful game. It's on so many collections now today too. And in my opinion, if not the best, one of the best Darius games. Highly recommend this one. All right. What else we got here that we can talk about? We'll talk about more stuff to do with the arcade stick, I think. So let's just move on over here. What's good with an arcade stick? Fighting games. We got Fighting Vipers. One of my first Japanese games I want to show. I picked this one up because you can actually be Pepsi Man. You can unlock Pepsi Man here. The US version, you can't have that. And I'm a big fan of Pepsi Man. I want the PlayStation 1 game. It's pricey. I can't really legitimize doing that right now. It doesn't make sense with being jobless, but one day, hopefully I'll get that. But this is a really cool game. I think it's done really well in terms of the arcade and plays great on the Saturn. Super fun. Highly recommend it. All right. Another one. And a gold standard for the system. Virtua Fighter 2. Look, it even says Virtua Stick right there. This is such a fantastic game and was just such a leap in terms of performance and fun factor over Virtua Fighter 1 for the system. This game looks great. It plays great. It runs in the Saturn's high resolution mode. So when you actually stick this on, like, I don't know how they did it, but you know, you look at certain game systems and then you look at the Saturn when it runs, there's these specific titles in this high resolution mode. It's like HD for a tube TV. It's like on a whole different level. Like this, Die Hard Arcade, what's that other one called? Decathlete. I wish I had that one. I don't have that one. But they look so gorgeous in this high resolution mode that the Saturn can support. But yeah, this is a great game, and it's not too expensive. I highly recommend this one, especially if you have fight sticks. Although pads will work too. All right, another good 3D fighter, and one I imported from Japan as well. The original Dead or Alive. Now, you can play this thing all over the place. I wanted this one because Tomonobu Itagaki, he had said this was his favorite version, and I believe he said closest to the arcade. So I really wanted to get this, and I really enjoy it. Like, this is a great version of the game. It's fun to play, really responsive, looks good, and I mean, it gives some of these other 3D fighters definitely a run for their money as best fighter on the system in terms of 3D. Great game. Highly recommend it. Funny to play now with all the ridiculous jiggle physics too, especially when you see them in their polygon form. It's just so funny. All right, what else we got? Okay, we definitely got to talk about this one. Fighters Mega Mix. It's like the original Smash Brothers. You get all these fighters from Fighting Vipers, Virtua Fighter 2, and even more games like Sonic Fighters. It's crazy. You could actually play as the Daytona car on here and fight, which is just nuts. I mean, this is just Sega going all out and going crazy with their imagination. To me, this is a must-have 3D fighting game for the system. So fun. You can play in the Fighting Viper style or the Virtual Fighter style, whatever you prefer. And it's one of those games where, and I don't know if you can see the screen, but there's a lot of unlockable characters. I miss the days where games would come out and you had all the stuff you could unlock. It really gave the game so much life in terms of playing through with your friends or by yourself. And this is one that I definitely come back to a lot, and I think a great capstone for the 3D games. There's one other 3D fighter I don't have. I mean, there's several I don't have, but there's one I don't have I really want called Last Bronx. I'm hoping at some point I can track that one down. And then I'd be pretty happy on the 3D fighter front. But yeah, that's another great one for the arcade stick. Gonna switch it up a little bit now in terms of fighters. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and get into Mortal Kombat Trilogy. Going to the 2D fighters now. So, and I don't know if you guys can see on the front, but I actually have the artist who drew the Mortal Kombat sort of dragon. I have his autograph there. I had him sign this at Classic Game Fest. I think his name's like Paul Nauman or Newman or something like that. But I don't know. I know this game regularly is one of the most valuable Mortal Kombat titles out there. And so to get him to sign this specific version, I was pretty excited about that. I also have Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. Honestly, I probably play that one more. But it's neat to pull this off the shelf sometimes and just get access to all the characters. And whether it's the arcade stick or the pad, this is the version of this to play. I mean, you really want to play this with an N64 or a PlayStation controller? I don't. Just the button placement on this thing is just great for this. And the stick, of course. So, highly recommend this game. Although Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 is another good one. Alright. More 2D fighter fun. And let's just go ahead and get into these two. And I'm going to go ahead and show them both off because I feel like they're very much in a similar vein. But X-Men vs. Street Fighter and Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter. These also came out on PlayStation. They're on collections. But I wanted the Saturn versions back in the day. These are both really good. I think most people actually prefer the X-Men vs. Street Fighter. But honestly, this one's good. I think it's a roster thing because the rosters are slightly different. I wanted these big box ones. They come with these 4 megabyte RAM cartridges. They're kind of stuffed in here. I don't ever use them because I have a US Saturn, but I just think they look so much better in these big fat cases as opposed to just the little cases. So I wanted to get these complete packages. But these are great. Go get the Marvel vs. Capcom collection for Switch or PS4. Play them there. Those are the arcade versions. These are Saturn versions. So if you want them on the Saturn, track them down. I don't know the pricing on them now, but I feel like when I got these, they actually weren't too bad. They were fairly priced. It wasn't insane, surprisingly enough. But yes, both fun and fast fighters. These move quick. They blow the PlayStation ones out of the water. It's no contest. Highly recommend. Alright. Let's go ahead and get into another fighting game and another accessory, actually. So I'm just going to pull this one down. Kind of a precursor to those last two we saw, Marvel Superheroes. And the reason I pulled this down is I actually have a 1 megabyte RAM card. This is the only game that came out in the United States that supports this cart, which is nuts. It's a Japanese cartridge, right? And so I wanted to have this to go with this, kind of like the 4 megabytes are with that. And so when I play this, I use this. Now, some people like the game without it. Some like it with. You do get more frames of animation, specific effects that you don't get without it. But I think it may slow the game down just a little bit. You definitely don't want to play this with the 4 meg RAM card. It doesn't work properly. So you either do it without or with. I do it with. The characters in this are so much bigger than the other 2 games. I think that's the issue. There's a lot of detail and stuff with this game, and so it just moves a lot slower. But honestly, it's still a fun game. Once you get used to its speed, it's a good time. I also actually have Children of the Atom, X-Men Children of the Atom. I just didn't pull that one down. But that's the precursor to even this one, and also good. But yes, these are kind of the pairing there. Let's see what else we got going on. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and get into one more shooter for that arcade stick. Radiant Silvergun. Also a really good game. And if you guys notice, I'm kind of just talking about whatever in this video. Not my favorite, not my rarest. This is just a blend of sort of everything. I may leave some of that stuff near the end, some of my rare favorites, but I'm kind of just winging it in this video. And so I ended up getting this copy of Radiant Silvergun for free. It was a brand new copy. I got it years ago, back when it was still really expensive before it had been ported. It was sealed. And the way I got this was I built up points on my credit card. And I think I used like 300 or 400 and just got this copy for free. A nice, clean, beautiful copy. And this is a great game. You get all the power-ups at once. There's now plenty of ways to play this, whether it's on 360 or I think Switch. I still love the Saturn version. I think this looks great on a tube television through component video. And it's just a fantastic game. Great music, great fun, especially if you play 2-player. Love it. Highly recommend it. Probably the most imported Saturn game of all time, too, I would imagine. This was always imported back in the day. All right, so I think we're going to move on from some of these shooters and fighters for the most part. And so I had mentioned I had 10 controllers now, right? And so some other accessories I'm going to show. The Saturn had a multi-tap here in America, this black one, and it had 6 ports, which is pretty epic. I mean, most multi-taps you see, they'll have like 4, maybe 5. This thing had 6. So it really gave you so much to be able to play with someone else. I mean, you could do up to 7. And I'd use this a lot with 3 Dirty Dwarves. There's another game out there I don't have that I want called, I think it's called Guardian Heroes. Oh, treasure game. Would love to play that. Don't have that yet, but these are essential if you want to play some like seriously multiplayer Saturn titles. I also bought a second one, and I think this is going to give it away. This is the Saturn Bomberman tap. And this was something I imported from Japan. And yeah, it works with the US Saturn as well. And gives you more ports, which leads me to probably one of my more rare and also favorite games, Saturn Bomberman. Was super excited to get this. And as you can see, you can play 1 to 10 players with having both multi-taps. And so I have the full setup. And I was super excited to be able to finally do this. Haven't had a chance to do it yet. It's hard to get 10 people around to play it, but it is on my like to-do list. Maybe when I get my next job, I'll have like a celebration party and we'll bust this out. But this is also one of those rare games that supports the NetLink, which I don't have. I do want to get at some point, but I don't have yet. And I don't know how many players. I think it's 4-player online, which allows you to do up to 8 people, I guess. Maybe. I'm not sure. But this is a fantastic party game. And I think it blows away anything that came out on the PlayStation or N64 at the time. And they had their own good Bomberman games. But to me, this is the gold standard when it comes to Bomberman. Nothing has topped this one to this day, in my opinion. Great game. All right, let's keep moving along here. Let's go ahead and talk about this accessory, the steering wheel. I remember I picked this up a number of years ago, and I don't really buy steering wheels too much for systems ever, but like I mentioned, I love the Saturn. This system just is so fascinating to me, and I love the titles and how arcadey they are. And I had to get this for some different games. One of my favorites I play this with is Manx TT Bike. But the main one I bought this for was Daytona USA Circuit Edition. Now, this is another one that I imported over the US because we got 3 different versions here in the US of this game. The first one controls most like the arcade, but the visuals and the performance really are not good. The second one we got performs better, but the controls are really off, and they took all the good arcade music out. Like the Let's Go Away theme. This third version that came out in Japan, the Circuit Edition, the controls are as close as they are to that first one. They're still slightly different, but they're closer. You get the arcade music, and it performs the best. Now, we did get a third version here. It's like an online-only version, or it's like an online version where you can play online. But I believe it's the rarest US release on the system. It's insanely hard to find, expensive, and just, I'm not going to ever have that. So I went with this. This is the one to get. It's really fun. I highly recommend it, and fun to play with this. All right. We'll just keep moving along here. Next accessory, the Sega Stunner. Sega's light gun for this system. I love this light gun. It's so easy. Plug and play, and it works really well. You don't have any of the AV connectors like you did with the PlayStation 1. This thing just works, and very nicely. And I got some titles to go along with it here. So if you have a Stunner, you definitely need Virtua Cop 1 and 2. These are so fun, especially if you play them 2-player. And gosh, they're so close to the arcade. I mean, I feel like they're arcade perfect just about. But they're super fun to play, especially on a big tube like this. They're just great titles. It's funny, in most cases, this is the more valuable game. But I tell you what, this was really hard for me to find. I always find this in the little cardboard sleeve. The long box version of this game, I almost never see. Like, I've seen so many more copies of this than this, and it's because of this long box. But that little sleeve, you'll find those all over the place. But if you're looking for some fun light gun action, these are where it's at. Definitely pick up one or both. They're super great. All right, and the third light gun I have, and one of my big dogs, I'd say, one of the big 98. So I love the games that came out in 1998 for the system, and actually it's something I've actively tried to get. I think I call them the Big 4 or Big 5, but they were the major releases that came out on 98 from Sega and from specific third parties for the system, mostly from Sega. And this was the first one that we got, the original House of the Dead. And a lot of people, they don't like this because of the, I don't know. I guess it wasn't a great release, but you know what? I have fun with this. And yes, I paid the extra for the US version for the red blood, not the green blood on the Japanese. And I have fun with this, especially in 2-player. And gosh, the box art is so epic. But this, I'll tell you what, I like this better than the PS4 and Switch remake. To me, that's not a light game. That's a, what do you call it? I'm forgetting the word that they use. It's not motion controls. Whatever. You guys know what I'm talking about. The gyro controls. I want a gun. I don't want a gyro. But, yeah, this, you're probably going to want to get the Japanese version. If you're crazy like me, go for this one, but love this game. Love it. All right. Now, I think, you know what? I do have actually one more accessory. And so I'll pull down that and the game that goes with it. You're going to need a memory card for this system with how many games I've got. Now, my memory card I found had Dragon Force on the front, and it's so appropriate because this game, I mean, you could see right here, it takes up 284 blocks. This is a large game, and another Working Designs title. You know, I think this is only the second Working Designs title I've showed, but as I've said in the past, these guys are like my favorite publisher. I know not everyone loves them because they make some changes. I love them. We got stuff that we would not normally see without these guys. And some people consider this the greatest game for the Saturn. I've played a little bit of it. It's very confusing. You need to pull the manual out and give it a try. And that's what you have to do. You really have to give this game a try. Once you learn it and get into it, it's a masterpiece. But it is hard just to pick up and get going if you're one of those people that just wants to get into it right away. This does take some trial and error and experimentation and learning of how to play the game. But once you do, it truly is a masterpiece. And this is one of those games that I bought before I had a Saturn. I saw it at a shop called Game Fellas in a mall that was closing down here. And I don't remember how much it was. I think it was going for like $150, and I just swiped it because again, it's you know, it's complete in box. It's got everything, just like House of the Dead does, and Magic Knight Rayearth. But yes, such a masterpiece and something that's necessary. You know, something I didn't mention is the Saturn save system uses a little coin-op watch battery, like the Sega CD. And so at some point, that battery starts to go. And when it does, you lose anything that's saved on the system. That's the reason I bought the Fram chip, to get the Fram mod. Once you do that, you don't have to worry about that anymore. You know, then the only reason to replace your battery is for the timing on the system. But very, very necessary. I have this and then, of course, the pseudo Saturn card. So plenty of save space for myself. But yes, love Dragon Force. All right. Now, we got more here. Plenty more, actually. So let's get into more stuff for the system. I'm going to start getting into some unique things that I have for it. This is one of the few repros I have for the system. Phantasmagoria. Now, we never got this game in the States. There's a company called Enigma Customs. You can see at the bottom. They make Saturn long box repros, and these are cool. I mean, you get the long box, you get the manual, you get the sleeves that these discs come in, and it's an 8-disc game. I mean, there's a lot of content here because it's pretty much all video, and you know, it's rated M. Don't play these around your kids, folks. You can see that kind of thumbnail right there. It's pretty risque, but I had heard about this game for years and was always interested, and so I was like, I want to get this. And so happy to have it. It is kind of finicky with my Saturn because it is CDRs. Yeah, like I said, I probably need to get my laser calibrated, but I don't know. At some point, I am going to go full on into these. All right. Go on to the next one. This is the last repro I have for the system, but it was a must buy from the same place, Enigma Customs. Police Knots. Now, what's really cool with this is actually another game that supports that stunner. And man, like, you know, I showed you guys my copy of Snatcher. Like, I had to get this game. The music, the art style, it is just gorgeous. This game also actually supports the Saturn mouse, which I don't have. Maybe one day I'll pick it up, but I always, because we've never gotten Police Knots here. So this was definitely on the top of my list of things to, you know, pick up from Enigma Customs. It actually plays a little better with my Saturn than Phantasmagoria does. But again, I haven't gotten super far into it. I think I got to the first light gun spot. but another one I need to really sit down and get into. But this is a great game no matter where you play it. Just play it. All right. What else we got here? Lots of other stuff. You know, I really haven't talked about any platformers, so I'm going to get into a pretty fun little platformer here. Mega Man X4. Now, you can get this on Collections Galore. It's cheap on the PlayStation 1. It's pretty expensive here on the Saturn. But to me, 2D art and the Saturn go together like peanut butter and jelly. And this is great to play with the Saturn controller. This is probably the best X game. I don't know, I go back and forth with this and the first one. But I love this game, and I'm happy to have it for the system. Great game. All right, what else we got here? Okay, so let's go ahead and get into these guys. So, as I said in my Sega CD video, the Lunar series is my favorite series of all time. And so they had Saturn releases. In fact, these were the first of the remakes to come out. And so I had to get them both here. I got Lunar Eternal Blue, and I believe I have everything. There's a little map in there. I think I may just be missing the little OBI sleeve thing. But it's so interesting playing these on the Saturn, because the Saturn sound chip is different than the PlayStation. So the music and the songs actually sound differently. It's cool because you get Japanese voice acting too. And so to me, the best time to play these is if you've already beaten them on the PlayStation. It's really cool to go play them here. You know who to talk to. You already know how to move the story along, but it gives you a different experience with the music and with Japanese voice acting. And you kind of fly through the game because you're not so concerned about talking to people. This is a playthrough of, hey, I know what I'm doing. I know who to talk to and where to find certain items. I just want a different experience with music and audio. It's a neat way to play it. Same with this one. Now, there's actually two versions of this on the Saturn. There's a little fatter box, which is the original release. This is actually the MPEG card release. And they put the complete at the bottom. Now, I actually do have an MPEG card in my Saturn. It's a little card that you plug in the back. And it does work in my US Saturn with this game. What it does is it makes the cutscenes full screen instead of like the little letterbox that the original release did. And yeah, it plays great, sounds great. Again, just fun to play the game in a different way than on the PlayStation. It's a lot of work to get this. The MPEG card, and a Saturn and a pseudo Saturn cart, but I didn't care. I'm a huge Lunar fan. I had to do it, and I'm happy I did. Such a neat release. That MPEG card works on other games. I know there's a car game out there where there's girls that model with the car, and it really makes that video footage look so much better. So if it's something you're interested in, hey, go down the rabbit hole. I definitely did, but yeah. Can't, as I always say, my two favorite games of all time, can't recommend them enough. All right, let's keep moving along here. We are definitely getting into some high-end favorite territory here. Let's keep with working designs. Oh, by the way, before we move on, that is another good reason to have these. For the people that don't like working designs, these weren't touched by them. So if you have played the PlayStation version or whatever, and you know the story and you know where to go, but you don't want that difficulty change and like the tinkering they did, these are untouched. So there you go. But sticking with working designs and my love for them, Albert Odyssey, Legend of Eldine, another great RPG for the system. Wonderful cutscenes, wonderful music, great story. The loading can take a little while, especially going in and out of battle. But just gosh, I love these manuals and disc art. They just made Saturn stuff so cool and fun to collect. I remember I spent a pretty penny on this. I want to say it was about $400 a number of years ago to get this thing in this shape. Probably a little too much, but man, I'm just a Saturn working designs freak. I love this system, and I'd rather spend that much than on honestly on some of these newer games, where you don't own the game, or it's just not there, or years from now you're not going to play it because it's some sort of key card, or servers are down. I just love that it's my game. I get to keep it. I get to play it. And I know disc fraud is a thing. I know at some point down the road, but there's probably going to come a time where I take all these and I burn them onto a computer and I have them on some sort of drive where I can play them. But at the end of the day, it's my game. I bought it, right? So, but great game. Highly recommend this for anybody out there. All right, let's go ahead and just stick with working designs. Shining Wisdom. Now, this is probably one of the ones that's not as good as a lot of these other ones I've shown off from working designs. It's still okay. If you like The Legend of Zelda, some of these top-down action-adventure games, you'll probably like this. It's a little slow to start, but it's still a good game. It's not bad. Now, there's a couple other Shining games that came out that I actually have, and I prefer them better. But this is still a cool, unique experience in the Shining universe. I'd still check it out. And staying in that same territory, let's go right to Shining the Holy Ark. Now, this game is more like Shining in the Darkness, where it's first-person sort of dungeon crawler RPG. But man, the visuals, the music, the story, and just the look of this game is so unique and different from anything else out there. This is a really cool one to play. It's some neat twists in the story. I highly recommend this one. Definitely better than Shining Wisdom. To me, not the best Shining game on the system, but darn close. Highly recommend. Now, the next one is one of those big 98, as I call them. And I believe the second one I'm showing, or third one actually, Shining Force 3. This is a really good game. And again, another one of those games that I saw at a game shop for like $160 or something before I even had a Saturn. And I just bought it because I knew how valuable and hard it was to find. So I've had this for years. And again, just love the top-down isometric view. Just great that Sega put this out. Now, there are some other, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like chapters of this game. I think there's like a part 2 and a part 3. Hopefully someday I look to get those, like repros of those. But for now, I just have the first one. And it's really great. If you like Final Fantasy Tactics, or of course any of the earlier Shining Force games, anything tactical or role-playing, you're going to love this. But again, really expensive, really hard to find. And if you guys haven't noticed, a lot of this stuff is still exclusive to this system. A lot of the Saturn, the hardware was really complicated. And so it's been challenging for people to port this stuff properly, whether through, I know emulation has gotten way better. Saturn cores are extremely good for Mr. FPGA. Who knows? Maybe someday we'll actually get an analog style Saturn system. I don't know. But if you notice, like, that's one of the things I love about the Saturn. The library is so unique to it. All right, let's talk about some more of my big dogs here. My most expensive Japanese game, Hyper Duel. This is a very fun, really attractive looking shoot 'em up for the system. Very pricey, still exclusive, very fun. The visuals on this game are really incredible, and I love this game. I spent quite a bit on this guy, a couple years ago. I think this was one of the last games I actually spent a good amount of money on, but it was one I don't know if it'll ever get ported, and I always wanted to play it. I was super interested in it, and I'm definitely happy to have it. So if you guys like shmups and, expect to pay some for it, definitely recommend this one as well. All right. Getting down to the nitty-gritty here. Another one of the big 98. Burning Rangers. Another one done from Sonic Team. Another 3D controller game. The visuals on this game. You know, this is a game that they probably should have pushed to Dreamcast. I think they definitely would have got a lot more performance and horsepower out of it. But what they did here, when you see what's happening with the water and fire effects and the different colors, this is a showpiece for the Saturn. Now, it's not a long game, but it's another one of those where you got to give it a chance, and I think you'll like it. And it's imperative that you play the American version. The Japanese version, so the way this game works is there's a navigator that's telling you where to go, because if you don't have that, you're going to get lost. So unless you understand Japanese, you're going to need this one, and it's expensive. It's another one of these really expensive, late-release 1998 Sega games. But my gosh, it is gorgeous. The anime stuff is really cool and fun. Highly recommended, but it's definitely a polarizing one. You either love it or hate it. But I absolutely adore it. Very cool game. All right. Now, to get into my last thing here. Now, I picked these up pretty early when having the system. I want to say it was Classic Game Fest back in like 2019. But I picked up the Panzer Dragoon Trilogy, all complete in box, for $700. About 7 years ago or so. It's a lot of money, right? And back then I felt it. But nowadays, that's a steal just for this one. So let's get into these. Panzer Dragoon, the first game. Love this game. The music. To me, this was the best launch title on the system. This game is still so fun to play today. Again, this is another one of those where I like this more than the remake. I just think it has more heart. You know, when you look at the water and what's going on, I just absolutely adore this game. And it's so cool what they did between these games. I believe you can actually transfer your save file in between games to like unlock and do other things. But I tell you what, I'll pick this over Star Fox any day and all day. I just love the atmosphere and the way this game is presented and the gameplay. It's so fun. And you can get a lot of gameplay out of this with all the different difficulties and unlockables. Just amazing masterpiece. And they just kept it right up with the second game. I mean, this is even more polished. You have more customization with your dragon. And I believe this actually supports the 3D controller. And this is one of the Saturn widescreen games. There are some games for the Saturn that are widescreen. I know this one for a fact is, though. And it does look cool on the widescreen TV in that widescreen. And some people love this one and some people love the first one more. I like both. I honestly can't pick. I think they're both really good, but a great evolution of the series, and I highly recommend this. And then finally, we get to the Big Daddy. We get to Panzer Dragoon Saga. This was like something I'd been going after for years. I used to always look at it. Never thought I'd get it, and then the day came. You can see it says 600, where I made a deal for 700 for all three. This game is complete. I got all the sleeves, all the discs, but embarrassingly enough, I have not played through it. I really need to sit down and play through this game and give it its just due. It's just when you get these collections like we have, I don't know, you get lost in other games, but this is just such a unique RPG. In the air, flying around, on land, and just the atmosphere of this game is so fascinating and unique, and I love the cutscenes. Like I said, I haven't played all the way through the game, but I've probably played an hour in, and I love what I see so far. Need to give it more of a chance, and I don't know if we'll ever see this ported. There have been rumors that the source code was lost, so they'd have to like sort of build this thing from the ground up. But anyone who's crazy enough to buy it, get it. Otherwise, I guess you could try to emulate it the best you can. You could import the Japanese one, but again, it's hard to understand what's going on. But definitely one of my big games for the system, for sure. Now that about covers everything. You know, I did mention I have Magic Knight Rayearth as well. If you love anime and working designs and little action RPGs like Zelda, give this a go. And yeah, that's my history with the system and my thoughts. I absolutely adore it. I mentioned Sega Lorg X earlier, Mel. I'll probably never see this, but if he ever does, thank you. Every time you post a video, I always watch it. I love your content. You've really inspired me to really get more into the system and collect more for it. And I love it. It's definitely, you know, of all the systems I have, this is up there, as I mentioned, as one of my top favorites. There's a few other guys out there, the Sega guys, Southern Sega Gentlemen. I love Joe from GameSack's coverage of the Saturn. Anytime there's a Saturn video, I'm always watching it. I'm just so fascinated by the system and the architecture. And I get that it was a pain to develop for, but when you had someone that knew what they were doing, how to take advantage of VDP2 with those like infinite planes and VDP1 and knew how to put it all together, oh my gosh, you just got such a beautiful game out of it. And there's so much for this system that I could still collect for and probably will over time. But anyway, guys, let's get you guys out of here with just a little bit of movement on here. You know, being that this is kind of an action RPG, I'm not going to play too much of it. Honestly, I don't even know where to go. It's been a while. I feel like there's like an animal that you kind of chase around. But yeah, this was my first game for the system. I love the music. It's great. Now, one thing I will say is I'm not sure, I think I mentioned it earlier, but I actually filmed this video before. But I just had the menu going, and I guess that song, that Magic Knight Rayearth song, and Clamp, oh boy, they did not like that, because they sure as heck flagged my video and didn't let me go forward with it at all. And so I'm hoping that they don't do it this time, because obviously there's a little bit of audio here, and there was that quick little cutscene, but I didn't play the whole thing. So here we go. Here's that animal.
Flash, what are you doing here?
And there you go.
Is something wrong?
So I guess I believe they're going to chase this animal around, and then it goes into the next part.
I have to catch him before he causes any trouble.
I guess we will see.
Wait, I'll help you.
So there they go, chasing that dog. But yeah, this, you know, I've played further into this game, and just the anime art style of this game and the cutscenes, especially if you like Zelda, any sort of like 2D top-down Zelda game, you'll just love this game. And again, here's another cutscene that we're gonna get. Hopefully this doesn't like kill the video, but we'll see. But anyway, I think with that, you guys, I'm gonna let you get out of here. Hopefully this doesn't do anything more, and we'll catch you guys next time.